of part of the session, we are gonna dig deeper into the AI that he has helped implement within recircular, but also into how AI can drive value within other circular economy strategies or other areas of the circular economy. So please do not hesitate to ask anything that you want to know. And I'm gonna jump straight to it. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Just let me know if you can see it, and then I'm gonna start. Are we good?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So how can we leverage AI to drive value in the circular economy? So that's what we're gonna try to answer today. So again, welcome everyone. And I'm gonna start talking about recircular, where we like to start our presentations making a quick and easy question. What do you see here? Pretty obvious, right? Well, where you see waste, we see an opportunity to generate economic, environmental, and social impact. Because if in all our houses we generate huge amounts of waste every single day, imagine what happens in our businesses and industries. Well, exactly the same. We generate millions and millions and millions of tons of different type of wastes. Altogether within Europe, those waste materials have a value of more than 3 billion euros. That means the materials that we are throwing away have some value. And on the other hand, we need those materials to manufacture things, the products that we use on our daily basis and the products that our companies use as well to continue producing things. And within the last decade, all these raw materials cost has doubled. And recently, the huge increases in prices and the lack of availability has affected companies that were already in a vulnerable situation after COVID, but it has affected production lines that had to stop due to not having materials available. And in recircular, some years ago, we started looking into this and we said, how can we help this situation? And in the end, we decided the way to do it was connecting businesses so that the waste of a company or resource, as we call it, can become a raw material for another company, substituting this way their need for virgin raw materials. That means we can have locally available materials being used within our industries instead of depending that much of imported materials. And we do it through our digital platform because we think it's necessary to automatize the whole connection processes and help this way drive the valorization processes and connect companies and reach not only any type and with our digital marketplace, we can scale so that we reach any type of waste or any type of material, but also any type of business, no matter how big or small it is. Because for us, it's very important to generate circular opportunities also for the small ones. Sometimes we feel like circular economy is only for the big companies, the ones that have a whole department dedicated to environmental stuff or sustainability, or specific people that are dedicated to waste and materials. And we want to drive value as well for those small companies that don't have so many opportunities, that don't have so many people dedicated to these aspects. And that's why we want to make it very easy and very simple for everyone to work with us. And that's why we developed a marketplace, which is a system that is really, really simple and easy to use, where companies can just find and upload information about any material they have. We are talking about any type of waste that is generally produced within our production processes, but also any materials that has been used and that the company is not using anymore. So it can be used storage material or industrial equipments that they are not using anymore, and then maybe another company may make use of it. It can be excess materials that we have stored. So we find that there is value into all these sorts of materials, and we want to promote that other companies can use the materials that we are not using anymore. And that's why in our marketplace, you can upload information about anything you have and you are not using anymore, so to say, and maybe another company may be able to use it. So, and how does our system work? Well, we upload information about the available resources that a company has, and our AI starts looking into what can be done with those resources and which type of companies that we have can reuse or recycle them. So we automatically notify those companies or those potential consumers that there's something available that they may use. And we do it in a way that even if they don't know that they can use it, we can create that opportunity or just tell them, yeah, this material can be used within your sector for this and these purposes. And we are obviously looking into going farther and farther into these solutions that we can propose to the different companies with the different materials or waste materials that we get into our marketplace. If there is a match, like in dating apps, for example, that are very usual nowadays, we've helped closing the whole process within our marketplace so that we can provide the traceability and the transparency that is necessary within this sector, and that hasn't always been the case. But due to regulation, due to needs, obviously, of all of us, we need that to have the accountability that the companies are doing the right thing with the materials that they purchase or the waste they generate. And for that purpose, we have implemented different functionalities that help with the whole traceability process as well. So I'm going to dig a bit deeper into how we use artificial intelligence, or why we thought we needed to implement it. Because we had already a matching process initially that was based on rules, and that helped us already identify potential uses for those materials. But it's obvious that it can only reach, it can only get you there, to where the rule just connects one thing to another. And with artificial intelligence, we believe we can improve the whole marketplace in different areas. For example, we can improve the resource recommendations to our users. If we understand better who our user is and what does our user does, and what do other users with similar characteristics do within our marketplace, we can better recommend what materials may this company use, or what materials they may have that they can upload into our marketplace to sell, for example. And all of that to give a second life to a higher volume of resources. Our main goal at Recircular is to generate the highest possible impact, and that's why we want to give a second life to as many materials as we can. So being able to better identify what our users may need or may have will help us increase the volume of resources to which we can help give a second life. Obviously, we need to identify what materials are part of the wastes that are uploaded into our marketplace to see who may use those materials or who may recycle those materials. And that's why AI helps us identify as well. And then we implemented as well a small part of artificial vision, of computer vision, where it helps us better identify what's being uploaded into a marketplace and better classify it into categories and subcategories. So with that information, then we can provide better recommendations to our users or to what can be done with that material. In terms of traceability, as I mentioned, it's very important for companies to know the whole process of what is being done with the waste or the different resources that get out of their facilities, because in the end, they are responsible for it. So they have to know who's the end user of that. And that whole traceability process can be now followed within our marketplace, where we don't only match a seller with a buyer, but we can also identify intermediate processes that are necessary to give a second life to those resources and match all of the different parts. So we could match a seller with a recycler and then with an end user, for example. So imagine plastic material that is being generated in a factory that has to go to a recycler that will clean it, shred it, and then generate a virgin, like a secondary material for another company to use that is then again producing bottles, for example. So we could trace the whole process, and we've implemented it with proofs. So companies can upload pictures, for example, and evidence of that the materials are leaving or receiving in a place. We can use geolocation to know where it's living or where it's going. We can store all that information in blockchain, and we can deal with the whole documentation that is necessary for having the whole traceability of the waste stream. That's specifically for waste streams. There is, for the ones that don't know it, there is specific documentation that needs to be issued by waste management companies to prove that they're dealing correctly with those waste streams, and that can be generated now within our system as well. So we have the whole traceability of what happens with that material, and we are transparent that way, and the companies can prove this way that they are doing things properly. And with our marketplace, we can also calculate the environmental and social benefits generated with giving a second life to those resources. We have developed our own methodology for impact measurement, with which we calculate indicators such as reduction of CO2 emissions, reduction of water and energy consumption, and improvement of life expectancy. And we issue reports in our system with those indicators for each of the transactions that are being closed within our system, so that companies can use those reports in their CSR strategies, circular economy or sustainability strategies, etc. Non-financial reporting, for example, which is now also mandatory for certain types of companies. And this way, proving as well and contributing as well to the different sustainable development goals. So just to give you a little bit of background of who we are and how long we've been around, the company has more than 5 years now. We've been working with more than 15,000 tons of different type of waste materials from all sorts of industry, from small social foundations to huge corporates, as you can see on the image, providing solutions to waste that didn't have solutions before, or finding better solutions for them. We also promote a lot of reuse instead of recycling wherever it's possible, for example. So that's one of the premises that we are working on, and that's part of what we focus on within the whole volume of materials that we work with. And we are very lucky that we've had support from different public and private institutions, and recently even a European grant to develop these projects and these new functionalities that we've been mentioning. Just a couple of examples of areas where we've been working, so that you can see that we work with really, really standard materials and really, really weird or special ones, so to say. So we've worked with, in the automotive sector, for example, with leather offcuts, or with plastics from the sector. So mixes of plastics, or leather offcuts from the seats, for example, that were being thrown away or not properly handled in this case. We've worked with feminine hygiene products. So post-industrial feminine hygiene products that were just not properly, not good materials to sell from the factory directly, but also used feminine hygiene products. We've been working or collaborating in the dismantling of power plants. So with anything that came out of the power plant. So it can be from the offices, so office material, it can be industrial equipment that can be reused, or any materials that was stored within the facilities that could be reused afterwards, but also anything that came out of dismantling and bringing down the whole building, for example. We've worked with textiles, but we work with pallets within our marketplace. We worked with boxes and lots of logistics materials. So really standard things, but also very special ones as well, which is part of the value that we can add to the companies that we collaborate with, that we deal with all sorts of materials and we try to find solutions to all of them. And that's just from my side, because now we want to dig a bit deeper into the AI part. So do not hesitate to follow us, obviously, to get in touch with us if there's any question that you may have later on, and obviously join our waste revolution. So I'm gonna stop sharing right now, and I don't know if there is any question or we just jump into the next part of the session.
So far, nobody has asked a question yet, so.
Okay, so please, just there is a chat, I guess you will know, so please write any question you may have in the chat in Spanish or English. However, I don't know if we're all Spanish speaking and just speaking in English today, or if there is an English speaker around, but in any case, just write wherever. If not, we're just gonna jump into the second part of the session, which is where we are gonna dig deep into the AI part and into what we've collaborating with Fabian and with Crata AI to implement the AI part of our marketplace. So we are going to start talking a bit deeper into how the experience was for us at Recircular, or how and which types of AI did we implement, and then we are going to open up to other circular economy areas or strategies or other companies that can implement AI, suggestions for them. And it's going to be some questions from my side, but again, do not hesitate to ask whatever you think you need to know. So to start with this second part, Fabian, as I already mentioned some of the functionalities that we've implemented or what we wanted to achieve implementing AI in our marketplace. But can you explain us from your perspective for the more technical side without getting, obviously we won't get very technical today because it's not the objective of the session, but you can get as technical as you want in another time if you need to dig deeper into it. So you can ask him any other time. But can you explain us a little bit more about the types of AI that have been implemented on our marketplace, on our platform?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we developed about 8 different recommender artificial intelligence plus several systems in the background. There's a generative AI system, there's a computer vision system. But ultimately, a lot of these recommenders obviously share very similar functionalities. And generally, the functionalities of the artificial intelligence are all interconnected. So I do think that you can boil down what we have done in terms of logic into sort of 4 different categories. The first being is that one system of all the AIs that we're doing is simply focused on trying to understand the user better, is trying to identify, well, how can I map together, which is one user that is similar versus another user that is similar, right? For example, using the descriptions, using industries, using all sorts of parameters that you can get. And in this way, try to map users together and allow ourselves to drive recommendations that then are based on, well, what are users that are similar to me buying and doing on the recircular platform. The next system would be trying to identify available resources or available resources of the users, because of course on the one hand we want to facilitate the buying process, but we also want to facilitate the selling process. So we actually have an artificial intelligence in the background that on several areas on the platform and also off the platform tries to identify, well, based on the user profile, what are the resources that they would typically have available in their companies and could sell on as, you know, waste materials, as second-hand goods, in order to there provide a value. The next thing would be that what we want to also do is, of course, identifying the materials that make up a waste product. So there is a big component here is that usually when you upload a waste product as a user, well, me as an end user, I'm not interested in that product, right? I'm interested in what comes out of it, what can be recycled out of it. And so a large part of what our AI does is exactly that. It tries to identify from every waste material that gets uploaded, what are the raw materials that can be recycled out of that, and then recommend those to the relevant users. And finally, we also have a computer vision model that is in place in order to help basically speed up the onboarding process. Whenever you upload a resource, it will give you a standardized response based on the image that you're uploading of the resources of the resource that it's seeing on the image, and also the kind of categories that the resource is in, basically filling out the profile. And in this way, what we obviously achieve is a more standardized way of receiving our data, because we use our AI to fill it. And in this way, we also help our AI recommenders later on in order to use this more standardized way of data.
Awesome. So in the end, we've implemented AI to help our users know what they can use, what they can have that others can use, and in this way give a second life, as I mentioned, to more and more types of resources, which is our end goal at Recircular. So all of these different AI systems that we have summarized, because there is lots of work behind it, just help us get there.
Exactly.
So as I mentioned as well, we already had some kind of matching process within our system, right? We had an algorithm in place that was based on rules, and that helped us tell a user, well, this can be used here. And that was already programmed within our marketplace, but obviously that was not enough for us. So how does the AI-based recommendation systems differ from these more traditional approaches like rule-based systems or manual matchmaking processes? What advantages does AI offer in this context?
Yeah, so I would say if I'd had to give you three, let's say, taglines of what are the key advantages of an AI system versus a rule-based recommendation systems, then I would say it's, on the one hand, the flexibility and understanding of data. On the other hand, the idea of being able to personalize at scale, and lastly, the fact that AIs also have a continuous learning and improvement process. And to detail this out a little bit more, what do I mean by flexibility and understanding of data? Of course, AIs, as we already outlined, right, are much more capable based on a much wider range of parameters in order to understand what creates a similar user profile, what creates a similar resource, right? Because with a rule-based system, well, you have, for example, the subsector information of a company, and you can say, well, if the company is in the same subsector, it's a strong match, or if it's in these subsectors that I've outlined, it's a strong match. Whereas an AI system is able to go much more beyond that, right? An AI system is able to use rich textual data in form of descriptions about LinkedIn profiles, about, you know, any kind of textual and also quantitative data that you give it, and able to match much smaller nuances within what drives similarity within two companies. And of course, in that manner, it can go much deeper and into much more detail about what are the similarities and what should the AI be doing as a result. And this goes very much aligned also within the personalization at scales. Of course, this understanding of data, this deep understanding of data that almost replicates only what a human can do, right? It means that you can drive really, really personalized recommendations, because you can exactly map what are almost identical users, identical products, and be able to provide as a result of that. And you can do this as a massive scale, because a human can do this, but a human can do this recommendation for, 100 company. An AI system can easily be scaled into the millions and billions of people, of companies, of any kind of thing that you want to look at, and provide these recommendations still with the same quality as before. And finally, you also, of course, have the aspect of continuous learning and improvement. By continuously, or let's say more punctually, retraining our artificial intelligence systems with new data, for example, successful user purchases, additional data that we have created by hand, and even additional data that gets generated by AI itself, you can re-improve the artificial intelligence solutions based on these learning iterations. And in this way, of course, you have sort of a system that continuously improves itself. Yeah, you're unmuted.
Yeah. Awesome, thank you. And as we mentioned, we match waste and use materials from companies with other users. So we want to identify who can use that. And for that, we have an AI-powered recommendation system that we have implemented. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that works?
Yeah, so I think first of all, the recommendation system always are based on its very basis, and this would hold for any industry. Let's say are based on trying to identify similarities between parameters and recommend as a result. So again, if we take the user example, for example, what you would be doing is you would try to take all the parameters, textual data in as much volume as you can, and try to recommend similar, try to identify what are similar users. And then using that, you can see what has the similar user done and provide recommendations. And this works the same with similar products, with any sort of like similarity that you want to do, right? On the supply side, it works in the same way. Similar texts of users, what are they uploading? What can you identify? But on top of that, there is also one big let's say peculiarity within the circular economy, of course, and in such a marketplace, which is that users are not interested in purchasing a waste material. They're interested in purchasing a recycled good. So what does an AI system that wants to be successful in a marketplace like recircular need to do? It needs to be able to identify out of any waste product what are the raw materials that come out of it. And instead of then recommending the waste product, it needs to recommend, or it needs to be capable of identifying users interested in those raw materials, and then again recommend the waste products that come from these raw materials, and also telling the users, of course, the raw materials that come out of it. And in this way, you're able to provide sort of very targeted suggestions, because you already have an AI that is assessing, well, what materials are in need in your company at any given point in time, and how can these be generated out of the waste that is uploaded, or the second-hand materials that are uploaded onto the recircular platform. And this the automation of this process, of course, solves these kind of matching bottlenecks that you have, right? Again, we are able to now, rather than just be able to say, okay, users are looking for waste products, how do these companies match with waste products, which oftentimes might not give you the right result. You are able to solve this bottleneck by simply already having this artificial intelligence, having identified, well, what is the materials that you're interested in.
Awesome, but obviously implementing all that didn't came without challenges. So as we mentioned, we implemented all sorts of different types of AI within the system. So what were the main challenges that you faced when we were implementing it, and how did you overcome them?
So I think the main bottleneck, as always in AI systems, is data. We need as much and as good data as we can. And even though with every development that, or every year that we are moving forward in this AI world, we are getting to a place where you need less and less data, you still, of course, and in an industry as specific as is the circular economy, need a certain level of quality of data. And you need the data to be rich in a sense. And of course, the first thing that we have done is we ensured that we have rich data in the platform in form of textual data, that allows us to provide matching to the maximum level that we do. And not only do we do that, you can use our external tools in order to, for example, retrieve additional informations on companies and then improve your recommendations as a result, because you're not only now dependent on what is the user input, which can oftentimes be of poorer quality simply because during an onboarding process, the user does not feel like filling out a very extensive description about the company or things like that. But you can base yourself on public information about companies that is available and incorporate that into your AI system. And then the other bottleneck, of course, is that we needed to be able to be able to have an AI trained on the idea that you need to decompose waste materials into raw materials. And thinking about models like GPT, like Llama, state-of-the-art modern models, they are not necessarily capable of doing something like this, because it's not typically in the language world a job that has been done many times, right? So the bottleneck that we needed to overcome here, I would say, definitely was that we needed a data set in the beginning that already decomposes waste materials into its components and also outlines the recycling process, so that basically the AI starts learning from a human expert about how he would tackle the recycling process and what comes out of that recycled process, and in that way be able to identify doing that also in an automated manner. And so what we done there essentially was a big human effort, right? We sat together between Crata and recircular, and we tried to build a data set of some size of doing exactly that, of recycling materials, of course, in an abstract manner, not actually doing the recycling process, but writing down how the recycling process would work and what are the kind of materials that come out of it. And in this way, build an AI that is capable of doing the exact same thing.
So yeah, there is lots of effort behind in terms of data management and data creation, definitely.
Exactly.
Well, it's necessary, right? It's part of the process, definitely.
It's not
Okay,
the most fun part of it, but it's one
yeah,
of the most
yeah,
necessary.
no, definitely. Luckily for us, the database of materials and matching opportunities is part of the core know-how that we have at Recircular, and it's part of what we have been doing for more than 5 years already. So definitely it was, we still needed more, but it was already a base that we could work with at least. So that was our advantage in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been talking about AI for waste valorization, for waste reuse and recycling, and for recircular for marketplaces. But we are gonna go a bit further into the circular economy in general. We wanna know not only, because the circular economy, and we always like to remind that, it's not only about recycling and it's not only about waste. Circular economy is something much wider. And obviously different areas of the circular economy can make use of AI to help drive value within it and help implement more circular economy strategies, which is in the end what we all need for a more sustainable production system. So beyond these implementations that we've been talking about, what other technologies or AI innovations you think could drive growth within the circular economy, or could help companies implement different circular economy strategies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, firstly, as I said already, I think, of course, we at Crata, we particularly position ourselves as a company that tries to, before providing a solution idea, sit down with a company to identify what really will drive value for their specific business case, which I think always holds. I think this is something that is very important to, first of all, be aware of. You know, like there are plug-in solutions that work better or not than others. But depending on the values that you have, depending on your objectives, on your data quality, on a lot of factors, it is very important to first figure out, hey, does this solution maybe make sense? Does another solution maybe make sense? Nonetheless, of course, there are solutions that definitely would benefit the circular economy industry more or less. And I think one already touches up on a solution that we've started building in recircular. And that is the idea of being able to classify waste based on its images, based on its textual data in an automated manner. Because many times, and I think this is a problem that especially within waste management businesses is being faced a lot. Well, you need to first be able to identify, well, what are the waste materials that you're even dealing with here? Because, you know, companies have big dumps, or you have big dump areas in which there's a lot of waste, and a lot of it is of value and a lot of it is not. And an AI can really speed up the process of trying to identify what are these waste materials. And then also, of course, if you build it to an extended way such as we have, identify, well, what are what is the recycling process already that you're going to need in order to process these waste materials. And you can do waste classification of, hey, these goods are dangerous and you need to handle them in a certain way. You can classify according to the official European classification system. And in this way, you can obviously facilitate a lot the process of handling recycled goods, knowing how to treat them before you even start, you know, considering the recycling process itself. And I think this is a value that is very important. The next thing is that you can do sort of process optimization, or generally like optimization of manufacturing processes, right? And what do I mean by that? Is that an AI, of course, like, you know, companies have their manufacturing processes and they have also changed over time. So typically you end up building up a data set of, you know, how a production process led, for example, to a certain result. That is, let's call it CO2 efficiency. But this could also be the cost that you had. So, you know, it could be an economic indicator. It could be an environmental indicator. This is the choice that you can have. But essentially, you can train an AI based on that data that it has seen in order to optimize your production processes to, well, either be economically most beneficial to you or be environmentally most beneficial. Of course, within the idea of circular economy and of sustainability, we would hope that you would try to implement something of environmental advantage. But these systems can be very, very, very powerful in optimizing both the resources used and also the process done during a production process. And I think this is very powerful. And then another thing, and this is more, let's say, machine learning rather than artificial intelligence, which are, of course, very aligned ideas, and AI ML is part of artificial intelligence, but nonetheless, oftentimes it's treated differently. And that would be within inventory optimization. For example, this holds a lot in like ride-sharing economy systems, right? It's like ride-sharing economy systems need to know exactly when and how to place their cars. And these kind of inventory optimizations, they can work in also any kind of production system, logistics system, any system that has warehousing system. And I would also say is actually an idea or a tool that's relatively advanced within the industry and is driving a lot of value, because you can exactly know at any given point in time how much inventory, how much stock do I need to keep in order to sustain the demand that I will be having.
So you've mentioned already a couple of sectors, but what are the key industries that you think could benefit most from AI-driven circular economy practices?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, it follows logically out of the solutions that I've just been given, right? I think like one of the first sectors that can drive a lot of value is anything that has to do with industrial sectors, right? Manufacturing, logistics, well, all these kind of processes where you have lengthy, complicated processes that need optimization and that also have a clear optimization parameter, right? Which typically is the cost that you will have in the process that you're doing, right? A logistics company needs to be able to optimize, well, how am I best going to do the route, both that they're going to have the limited cost to me, but also that they're going to have a maximum environmental impact. Production companies need to do the same, but they need to do this during their production process. And so I think, you know, given that these are typically ideas that are handled with a lot of manpower, it's a very logical idea that AI can come in there and be very, very powerful. And the other part, of course, is in the waste management and recycling sector itself. You know, there's a lot of automations that can be done on trying to plan and identify recycling processes of your waste goods beforehand that will save you a huge amount of time there. And I think this is an incredible value that, of course, has a direct impact on the environment and has a direct positive impact on what you're doing. So I think these two industries are definitely some of the key benefactors of what is being done. But that is not to say that I think that at the end of the day, any industry, anybody with data will be able to benefit from an AI solution. You know, anywhere where you have a data set that you can either take in order to automate a process, reduce your cost of labor there, or even, you know, drive value in terms of extra revenue, in terms of generating better sustainable value for your company also. There will always be a way to apply data-based solutions in order to give you an edge.
Awesome. So we are a small company. We are a very, very small company, small startup. And like us, lots of companies thinking of AI or thinking of implementing new technologies always are like, wow, is this for me? Will I be able to implement it? I cannot afford high costs. I cannot afford high complex processes. And it doesn't go either without work. So there is lots of work behind implementing AI systems. We already mentioned some of the manual work that we had to do to implement it, but there is lots of data gathering and collection that it's necessary. Luckily, within this last year, I would say there was a high hype within this world with new available or readily available tools that we all can use in our day-to-day lives and that we can already also use. for systems such as the ones we have implemented. So, Fabian, what advice would you give companies looking to integrate AI into their circular economy strategies and are concerns about all these difficulties that come with it?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, what you're saying, of course, is right. There has always been a stigma, and with right, I mean, it was a correct stigma of AI being extremely expensive to implement. Luckily, this stigma is sort of starting to vanish. It's not fully gone, but it's starting to vanish. So, and with that, what I think are my key advices is firstly to, well, start small, right? It's like nowadays there are many plugin models like ChatGPT, like Llama, like Birds, you know, from Hugging Face, many open source models also that you can implement that are extremely powerful because they have learned on all the world's data that for most use cases, they will give you something that will drive value. Of course, they have their limitations because they are trained on all the world's data. So in a system like the circular economy, you know, there will be points of failure. But that doesn't mean that such an MVP, which you can achieve at a limited cost nowadays and without the need of maintenance by an actual data scientist, but you could handle this with a computer scientist almost, that are extremely well. And at the very least, although it might be a system that's still a little bit flawed, it will drive your value, you know. And at the end of the day, I think every MVP is the same in this. At the very beginning, the first time you're rolling something out, you will do it with less of a cost. It will have its flaws, but it will drive value. And only once you see that the value actually comes from a solution like that, from an MVP solution, then start thinking of, you know, evaluating gradually into something that gets better and better. You know, like maybe first start, okay, well, we have a ChatGPT solution now. Let's take a small data set of a couple of thousand rows and do some fine tuning of that ChatGPT model. This could be a cost, you know, of some development, like the cost of doing the fine tuning of GPT, but it's still overviewable, you know, and like this gradually scale yourself to ever fancier, ever more complex, and ever cooler models, of course, which is also the result that you end up getting. But the idea here is very much, you know, it's like start small and, you know, with the value that you're generating, use part of that value to do more R&D and to grow in that sense. I think this would be the key advice that I can give on that. And then once you are ready, leverage sector-specific models, because models like GPT, as I outlined, have inherent problems when there is language that is very specific. But nowadays, there's more and more research also done in bringing open source model and non-costly models out that work specifically for industries. For example, nowadays, there are models. For example, one is called Climate Bird. Climate Bird is a model that's specifically trained on sustainability data, on textual information that is related to the sustainability world. Let it be the circular economy, let it be renewable energies, but these kind of models, the only knowledge they have is about their industry and anything that is relevant to that. So of course, these kind of models, they start actually being much more powerful in the specific task that you want to do them for. And this doesn't only exist for the circular economy, for sustainability, but you have legal models, financial models, and any kind of sector-specific models that are specifically designed to deal with this kind of jargon.
Awesome. So we have a question that says, when designing a prospecting campaign, what is your ideal persona to talk with within the company you're approaching?
So I'm not 100% sure whether you are asking about our prospecting campaigns as company or Crata, or how an AI model would try to identify such a thing. Could you clarify that?
Yeah, if you want to open mic, that's okay as well.
Not the AI. So how would we be doing that internally? Yes. Okay. I'm gonna take that as a yes. So I mean, I have to say that me being the CTO, of course, I might not be the perfect person to be talking about the prospecting aspect, but nonetheless, of course, we have specific profiles within companies that we're targeting. And I think one like very common profile at the end of the day is the profile of the innovator, right? It's like you want to be able to no voice. You at the end of the day, you want to be able to catch people that are super interested, that are doing actions that show that they're interested in the industry. I think that's the principal sort of method that I know about, that our sales team is using in order to reach out to companies, right? It's like try to identify via automated means that we have on LinkedIn, what are the kind of interactions that they're doing? Are they liking? Are they following pages that are relevant to us? Are they, like, it's super interested in content that has recently been published about solution, and sort of course, in that way, try to identify whether these companies are right now looking to or interested in actually targeting, in actually building an AI solution. Because it's true that oftentimes, of course, we face the issue that, yes, there are many people that are interested in building something, but there are also many people, and especially in the kind of industries that we're targeting, right? SMEs, in circular economy businesses, in professional services industries, that are still, well, a little bit, I don't know, they have a reservation against going against this, because they come from traditional industries, which is where I also believe is the most opportunity, but they still have a reservation of going out of their tradition and building AI solutions. So I think it's really about trying to identify the kind of person that's like an early adopter in that sense, right? You need somebody that is very willing to adopt an AI solution, and that's also willing for us, of course, to do something that goes beyond, let's say, a chatbot that you can buy on a subscription model. That's that for us is important. Somebody who wants to innovate, who can see the value, and also a type of company that, of course, will be able to benefit from the solution.
Awesome. If there are other questions, please, now it's the time to write them. And if not, I'm gonna jump to the last one from me, Fabian. So as more companies adopt AI for circular economy practice, how do you see the competitive landscape evolving? And could this lead to new industry standards or benchmarks? Tell us a little bit about how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're already coming to new industry standards, right? I mean, at the end of the day, 5 years ago, the industry standard was, as we said, no transformer, no GPT, no these kind of big transformer-based models. That's the technology behind it. But like solutions that work for Facebook's, for Amazon. And already here, there's of course a big change in the industry that we're seeing. And right now, I think what the kind of place that we are is like maybe 2-3 years before the .com bubble. At the end of the day, we're in a place where there's a lot of like cool or supposedly cool stuff coming out of AI, but that's not actually driving value. And I think what is going to happen within the industry is that in some years, we're going to have selective AIs, that like have a much higher quality standards and that have specific uses, but not this kind of like almost wild forest of different solutions that nobody can find their way through anymore, and you don't even know what is doing what anymore. Simply that, there will be a couple of solutions that have proven value, or a couple of ideas of solutions, because you will still be able and run very customized solutions, because you always are dependent in AI, of course, on the data that you have in-house to a certain extent. But definitely sort of that the playing field of players within the industry, and also the kind of things that are being done, is going to start leveling out, just as it happened, after the .com crisis. So I think this is one of the biggest things, and this obviously is going to lead that only the most robust solutions, or the most robust ideas, are the ones that are going to be remaining. And of course, we're also going to have certain standards. For example, taking the inventory optimization example that I was explaining before, I think that in some years' time, and it's already beginning to be, inventory optimization with machine learning will be the status quo of how it's going to be done. Like it will be completely replacing any manual ideas of working, of how this is doing. And so I definitely think that there will be AI solutions that will be defining the new status quo of how things will be done in any industry, and also, of course, in the circular economy industry.
Awesome. Thanks very much for your replies. I think this has been very clarifying, and hopefully for the assistants here as well. There are no further questions as far as I've seen. So, and I think no one's typing. So that's the session from us for today. Thanks everyone for joining. If there are questions at a later stage, you can always reach out to us on LinkedIn or on our emails or websites. Feel free to contact and to get in touch with us if you need anything. We're always happy to have a chat about this. And that's it from us. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a nice afternoon or rest
Thank
of
you
the
so
day.
much,
It's already
everybody.
morning, still morning.
Still morning. It's still morning. But have a nice day, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.